At 5:08 in the morning on March 4th, local time off the southern coast of Sri Lanka, the Iranian Navy frigate IRIS Dena sent out a distress call reporting an explosion on board. By the time Sri Lanka's naval rescue vessels arrived at the coordinates, there was no ship, there was no wreckage visible above the waterline, there were oil patches, life rafts and people floating in the Indian Ocean. The IRIS Dena, one of Iran's newest and most capable warships, had already gone to the bottom of the sea. The IRIS Dena was a Mudge-class frigate commissioned in 2021. It displaced approximately 1,500 tons, was armed with heavy naval guns, surface-to-air missiles, anti-ship missiles, torpedoes of its own, and could carry a helicopter on its flight deck. It had 180 crew members on board. It was not a patrol boat or a coastal defender. It was Iran's prize ship. The description used by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon podium when he confirmed the sinking on Wednesday. It was one of the most advanced surface combatants in the Iranian Navy's inventory, and it was sunk in approximately 4 minutes by a single weapon fired from an American submarine that the crew of the Dena never saw coming. The weapon was a Mark 48 heavyweight torpedo, a $4.2 million precision naval weapon that has been the primary anti-ship and anti-submarine torpedo of the US Navy since the 1970s and has been continuously upgraded since. The Mark 48 is designed to strike a surface vessel below the waterline and detonate underneath the hull rather than against the side, creating an upward pressure wave that lifts the keel and causes the hull to buckle or break apart. The Pentagon released footage, described as periscope camera footage from the attacking submarine, showing the IRIS Dena at anchor or underway before an enormous underwater detonation erupted beneath the stern of the vessel, lifting the rear of the ship visibly out of the water. The stern broke apart. The vessel went down bow first within minutes of impact. Hegseth confirmed the strike at a Wednesday Pentagon briefing alongside General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs. His exact words: "An American submarine sank an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. He called it a quiet death." He then placed it in historical context. The first time the United States Navy had sunk an enemy warship using a torpedo since the Second World War. He added 5 words that defined the administration's current operational posture. "Like in that war, we are fighting to win." The historical context is precise and confirmed. The last time any submarine sank an enemy surface vessel using a torpedo was the Royal Navy's sinking of the Argentine cruiser ARA General Belgrano during the 1982 Falklands War, carried out by HMS Conqueror. Before that, the last confirmed instance of a US submarine sinking a surface enemy ship was in 1945, during the closing phase of the Pacific War against Imperial Japan. The IRIS Dena sinking is the first such event in more than 80 years of American naval warfare. The geographic significance of where this happened cannot be overstated. The IRIS Dena was approximately 40 nautical miles, roughly 75 kilometers, south of Galle on Sri Lanka's southern coastline. That puts the strike location thousands of kilometers from the Persian Gulf, from the Strait of Hormuz, from the Arabian Sea operational theater, where US and Israeli forces have been conducting the bulk of Operation Epic Fury since February 28th. The IRIS Dena was in the Indian Ocean in waters that fall under the operational jurisdiction of the US Navy's 7th Fleet, not 5th Fleet, which covers the Middle East. This is the first time since the war began that combat operations have extended into the 7th Fleet's area of responsibility. The war is no longer geographically contained to the Middle East. The reason the IRIS Dena was in the Indian Ocean rather than in Iranian waters is straightforward and confirmed by multiple sources. The ship had been participating in 2 multinational naval events hosted by India at Visakhapatnam on India's eastern coast, the International Fleet Review 2026 and the multilateral naval exercise Milan, which involved dozens of navies from around the world. India's Navy had welcomed the IRIS Dena's arrival on social media on February 17th. The ship completed the exercises, departed Visakhapatnam, and was transiting back toward Iran through the Indian Ocean when it was torpedoed. It was on a return voyage from a routine international naval engagement. The Indian government has not commented publicly on the sinking. Bloomberg noted the strike lands uncomfortably close to India's doorstep and put significant pressure on Prime Minister Narendra Modi, whose government has been trying to maintain a calibrated neutral position in the conflict. Sri Lanka's response was immediate, professional and politically careful. The country dispatched 2 naval vessels and at least 1 aircraft to respond to the distress call. When they arrived, there was no ship. Sri Lankan Navy spokesman Commander Boudica Sampath stated, "We found people floating on the water. Rescuers recovered 87 bodies, which were transported to the Karapitiya Teaching Hospital in Galle and moved to a makeshift mortuary. 32 survivors were pulled from the water alive and were admitted to hospital, 7 in emergency care, 1 in critical condition, the remainder being treated for blast injuries and exhaustion. Approximately 61 people remained unaccounted for as of the time of reporting, from a crew of 180. Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister Vijitha Herath told Parliament the government had deployed all available maritime and air assets and would continue searching. He maintained a deliberately neutral position, emphasizing Sri Lanka's humanitarian obligations without characterizing the cause of the sinking. Sri Lanka has approximately 1 million of its citizens working in the Middle East, making the country's economic exposure to the conflict significant and its diplomatic neutrality a matter of economic as well as political necessity. The ship's commander and several senior officers were among the 32 survivors. According to 2 Sri Lankan sources who spoke to Reuters, those officers told the Sri Lankan Navy they were hit by a submarine attack. They did not know which submarine. They did not have time to know. The Mark 48 Torpedo, when fired from a fast attack submarine operating at depth, gives the surface vessel virtually no reaction time between weapon launch and impact. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper made the stated objective of US naval operations explicit in a video posted to social media on Tuesday, the day before the Dena sinking. The US is focused on sinking the Iranian Navy, the entire Navy. He added that as of that statement, there was not a single Iranian ship underway in the Arabian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz, or the Gulf of Oman. General Kane confirmed at the Wednesday briefing that the US has now destroyed more than 20 Iranian naval vessels, 1 Iranian submarine, and the IRIS Dena, effectively neutralizing Iran's major naval presence in the operational theater. The IRIS Dena is specifically noted as being outside the theater, confirming the US is actively extending naval operations beyond the defined conflict zone. Also confirmed separately on March 4th, the IRGC Navy's Soleimani-class corvette, IRIS Shahid Sayed Shirazi, was targeted near Bandar Abbas in the Hormozgan province, meaning US strikes on Iranian naval assets within Iranian home waters continued at the same time the submarine strike was conducted thousands of kilometers away in the Indian Ocean. Trump, speaking at a White House gathering of technology executives on Wednesday, described the war as going extraordinarily well. "Somebody asked me on a scale of 10, where would I rate it?" he said. "I said about a 15. He said Iran's ballistic missile stockpile was being wiped out rapidly and added that their leadership is just rapidly going. Everybody that seems to want to be a leader, they end up dead." Iran's response to the sinking came from Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, who posted on X, "Mark my words, the US will come to bitterly regret the precedent it has set." Iran's government formally accused the United States of committing an atrocity. No specific retaliatory action against the Sri Lanka sinking was announced as of reporting time, but Iran's broader retaliation campaign, Operation True Promise 4, was continuing with missile and drone launches against Israel and Gulf targets simultaneously. The IRGC's naval commander Mohammed Akbarzadeh continued to insist that the Strait of Hormuz remains under the complete control of the Islamic Republic's Navy, a claim that sits in increasingly obvious tension with the confirmed destruction of virtually Iran's entire operational surface fleet. The naval expert cited by Fox News, Thomas Shugart of the Center for a New American Security, framed the message of the IRIS Dena strike bluntly. This sent a signal that if there are any Iranian warships left or any Iranian government-owned ships, they should expect no mercy. He added that the US submarine capability, nuclear-powered with unlimited endurance except for the food on board, carrying the most advanced weapons and sensors in the world, is categorically superior to anything Iran could deploy in response. Iran's remaining submarines, he noted, are ex-Russian diesel-electric boats that are at least 20 to 30 years old. The legal dimension of the sinking is already being raised in international forums. The IRIS Dena was in international waters, not in an active combat zone, as internationally recognized. It was returning from a routine peacetime naval exercise. International law of armed conflict permits the targeting of enemy military vessels on the high seas during a state of armed conflict regardless of location, a principle established in the laws of naval warfare codified in the 1994 San Remo Manual. The US and Iran are in an active state of armed conflict as of February 28th. Under that legal framework, the IRIS Dena was a legitimate military target wherever it was located. Whether that legal framework is accepted by every party in the international community is a separate question. Russia's foreign ministry condemned the sinking and called it a war crime. Iran called it piracy. The United States has not engaged with those characterizations. Here is the strategic picture that the IRIS Dena sinking reveals when you step back from the individual event. The US has not conducted naval warfare at this scale or with this level of aggression since the 1991 Gulf War, when the US Navy effectively neutralized the Iraqi Navy in a matter of days. The explicit stated goal, sinking the entire Iranian Navy, is being executed with methodical speed. Iran's surface fleet is functionally gone within 5 days of the conflict beginning. Its one confirmed submarine was destroyed, its naval headquarters was struck, its Strait of Hormuz coastal defense infrastructure is being degraded simultaneously, and now its newest frigate has been sunk by a torpedo in the Indian Ocean 4,000 kilometers from Iran by a submarine that was never detected until the weapon had already detonated. The irony is precise and significant. Iran declared the Strait of Hormuz closed and claimed its navy would control those waters and attack any vessel attempting to pass. Within 5 days, the US has confirmed it destroyed over 20 Iranian naval vessels and has now demonstrated it can sink Iranian warships anywhere on Earth's oceans. The IRGC's claim of Hormuz control is being made by a navy that no longer functionally exists as a surface force. What remains of Iran's maritime threat is its coastal missile batteries, its mining capability, its IRGC small boat swarm tactics, and the enduring reality that war risk insurance withdrawal is keeping commercial shipping away from the strait, regardless of what the US Navy says or does about the surface threat. Iran does not need warships to keep the strait commercially closed. It needs the threat to remain credible enough that no insurance underwriter will cover a vessel transiting it. On that dimension, the economic warfare dimension, Iran's position has not been destroyed by the sinking of the IRIS Dena. It remains intact.